One is named Remy.
This is Remy.
The other, Bobby Rocks.
Bobby Rocks here.
Together, they take you on weekly journeys of life from the point of view of Xennials, or people born in the late 1970s to mid-1980s. Their aim is to give a voice to the voiceless. It's the Xennial Odyssey podcast. Welcome to the Odyssey.
I think that we kind of want to talk about the state of decay in the world right now, because there's a lot going on socio-politically and just actually in regards to everything. So I thought we'd discuss the fact that we feel like we're very close to being Nero playing the fiddle when Rome burnt, and he just watched on a hill.
I mean, I've been there. I've been there for a while. I mean, I think when Kelly was on, Kelly talked about just burn it all down.
Yeah.
I'm kind of there. But we're going to talk about the ways in our society today and that has kind of manifested itself.
There's just some very strange things in the news that we could touch on. It's been a week full of men shooting beer and people crying. And I've lived a long time on this planet, and I've never seen the divisiveness and the level of anger that I'm seeing right now on a daily basis. And just, there's also been there's just beautiful cities throughout the country that were once amazing that are falling to shit. Portland, San Francisco, it feels like we're on the precipice, Bob.
All right, so we've got our foundation for how we're going to tackle this episode.
Yeah.
I think I know you've already said some cities that are literally just
into cesspools.
Decaying. We have social media, which, I mean, to me, it's kind of ground zero for all negativity that exists. And we can kind of just briefly touch on world events, because we should be fair, because it's about more than just what's going on down the street, down the block, in our state, in our region of the country, in our country.
Yeah.
It's going on everywhere. And
we avoid being topical sometimes about stuff like this. We're not a political podcast, but it's hard to not feel involved as the flames billow ever closer.
And it's hard to not take our point of view as people our age, talking about current events. And so that's where we're going to go with this episode.
Yeah.
So where do you want to go first?
You and I, last week on the ride, had talked a little about China and Russia.
Mm-hmm.
And you made some interesting points to me. Because why don't you give people the skinny, though? Because, there's some unions happening behind the scenes right now that have some people concerned. Other people see them as being potentially good if they're handled the way they need to be. Maybe give people a little insight into that.
Well, I guess what I was getting at is that it all starts with communism.
Mm-hmm.
Even though Russia says it's a federation and the USSR was dissolved in 1991, I mean, Putin still operates it like it's the USSR. And by the way, he worked in the Kremlin.
Yeah.
So he was a part of that.
He knows.
Yeah, and he has, there is some pretty good cult of personality that goes on in Russia, but that's kind of aside. And I'm bringing up Russia because, I mean, we have the conflict in Ukraine that they started.
That thankfully is not going quite how they wanted, which is amazing.
And so the thing that they hang on, but their actions speak louder than words, is they're really just protecting their borders because Ukraine wants to become a member of NATO.
Mm-hmm.
For anyone who doesn't know, NATO stands for the North Atlantic Treaty Organization. It's essentially all the countries of Europe that the Atlantic Ocean, because it was post-World War II. That's how it started. And they all kind of will come to each other's defense if they feel like there's a threat to their borders.
It's like the Avengers, in a way.
And the United States is a part of that, too, because they also are on the Atlantic.
Mm-hmm.
And probably because they said they had to be in it.
And, you mentioned communism. How fucking insane has it been to see it resurface?
Well, it never went away.
No,
it never went away. I mean,
resurface at the volume that it is right now.
But it's really been our focal point in the modern times as soon as China really started to become a financial powerhouse.
Yeah.
Before, when our own country started outsourcing things to China because it was cheaper to get products, to get the work done in another country. And what on the other side of that, you had China become a very wealthy country. Have they? I don't know off the top of my head if they've passed the United States.
You know what?
Yeah,
I'm not sure, but I believe recently that it may have happened. But do not. I mean, I could look at my phone. But
So ultimately, what I told Rem was that China has a vested interest in Russia because, number one, they share the largest border in the world. They both have similar ideologies, and let's be honest, when the rest of the world unofficially put an embargo on Russian products, who stepped up? China stepped up.
Yeah.
And they weren't the only one. India stepped up too. But you know what? So this gets into my thing of a dog-eat-dog society. Do you know what dog-eat-dog is?
Well, in a definition in these exact terms,
Yeah.
no,
on a world stage, essentially, like India is not a communist country, but you know what? They have China right up here.
Yeah.
So it's kind of a, what's good for my neighbor is good for me. There's certain backdoor deals that are just done on such a large scale. And I don't want to just go completely off on a tangent because I would finger wag at our own country too.
Yeah.
Because our own country has just yet got us in another proxy war, because that's essentially what I feel the conflict in Ukraine is for a United States person. It's the military-industrial complex getting their contractors paid because now they have a reason to make more ammunitions and more weapons and send them to a country that is in dire need of it to protect themselves.
So let me, if you don't mind, I had asked Bob specifically. I was like, do you think that China and Russia combining, meeting up, gelling, poses an immediate threat to us? That was me asking, because obviously both of them have access to, weapons. Let's just put it that way.
Oh, okay, so I got you. So
you guided me away from that.
And what I told Rem is that no, because the United States supplies so much money and so much debt. China has bought so much United States debt that they have a vested interest in us not being wiped out. So I really do think that there are the president of China, at some level, he supports like what's going on in Russia. But when Russia starts talking about like lobbing nukes and stuff, he probably steps in and he goes, "Look, we'll support you, but we do have a limit."
Yeah, not in that direction.
And similarly, by the way, when people get up in arms, I don't think nuclear weapons are a good thing just in general, but people get worried when a country like North Korea has created the viability to sustain and to create their own arsenal of nuclear weapons. But then one thing I told you was that, and this is just my feelings off the top of my head, is that I don't really feel like they have any intent on ever firing a nuclear weapon. They just want the threat, because what comes with the threat is, in their mind, what I perceive as power and a seat at the table of power. And that's really, because I actually read an article, this was several years ago, when it was discovered that not only that North Korea had nuclear power, like to make nuclear weapons, they also had the technology to make intercontinental missiles. So they could hit the west coast of the United States.
Yeah.
This article I read said that as soon as that rocket goes up in the air,
ours go off.
No. The first thing that's going to happen is Japan's going to intercept it, and if Japan misses, China's going to intercept it. Because and further down in the article, it was like, and then China's going to go to another communist country and be like, "What the fuck are you doing?" Yeah, and because what Remy's getting at there, mutually assured destruction.
That's the beginning.
One fire, like in Terminator, like in war games. You fire a nuke, my response is to fire a nuke, and then we just burn the earth.
Yeah, it's terrible.
We literally have the biblical scorched earth.
And one of the reasons I asked you is because, maybe about a month ago, New York citizens were like email delivered a video that was explaining to them how to survive a nuclear attack, which is crazy.
Were they told to get under wooden tables?
Bro,
Like our parents, like our boomer parents were?
Yes, what was crazy is it was essentially like an updated version of that. You'll want to make sure you're inside and get as low as possible. No, if you see a nuke, bye-bye. You know, and it's like, but why would they be doing that again? Because they used to do that a lot in the 50s and 60s, and I know part of that was the fear, but part of it was because of the genuine threat. And I found it interesting, because watching it, to me,
Fear is a powerful thing.
it was creepy as fuck to watch. It's like this lady, and you can tell it's well produced, and she's like, listen, you know, if you see it or hear it, this is what you do. And it's like, no, oh fuck no, you know? So, but I agree that if that were to happen, that would be the game. We'd be wiping the field.
I really feel like no world leader wants to press the button. Like, they would rather, I mean, I hate to say this, but they would rather kill people on the ground with weapons.
Yeah, it's not a good business move.
It's, yeah, but from a financial standpoint, you're right. I mean, so ultimately, like, China, these are China's neighbors. They have hundreds of years of, at this point, built up, and decades, especially during the 20th century, post-World War II, of just built up alliances and partnerships, and those matter. But I mean, sadly, we live in a society where money talks. And if I'll give you an example. So one thing that helped us get bailed out in 2008 was China, because they bought our debt like a bank. And again, great time to have our friend Chris Flynn back on the next episode, because we can talk about things like that. How countries buy each other's debt, because then they put interest on it, and then they get these payments, so they make more money. And realistically, there's never like I can't wait to pay this off in 30 years.
It's the World Bank model.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's my take, is that first off, am I a sympathizer for Vladimir Putin? No, absolutely not. He has shown that he is at best a morally questionable human being. I think if they truly lived in a democracy, he would listen to his people.
Yeah.
Once they crossed those borders into Ukraine a little over a year ago, and the people were protesting, risking 20, 30 years in prison.
Yeah.
In Siberia, in like gulags, in like work camps. Like, they were risking things like that.
Real shit.
Stuff that, is privilege of being a United States citizen, that you don't have to worry about stuff like that by protesting. But on the level.
Yeah, on the level.
On the level. Like, they don't hide the fact that they have riot cops go and they pull you away and
they'll mace you,
and you're done. Yeah, here it's.
But yeah, there's that. So it's interesting because a lot of people for the first time are talking about the potential for just a world war
in our generation's lifetime. We're talking about this on a scale that hasn't been seen since the 1940s or the 1930s.
Yeah.
No, everything I just said aside, do I think that we are headed toward the possibility of like World War III? I 100% do.
Yeah, it feels that
Do
way.
I think that it is going to happen? I don't know. But you know what? The skids have been greased. The skids have been greased with what's going on, not just between Russia and Ukraine, but also the fallout, and yes, pun intended, but the fallout for NATO, because not every country that's a part of NATO thinks that Ukraine should be in there.
All agree, yeah.
And so there's that. This is the kind of stuff. I mean, and I don't want to make an apples to apples comparison, but yeah, like World War II. We had the end of World War I, then we had the Spanish flu, then we had the stock market crash, which was a worldwide recession.
Yeah.
We had galvanizing leaders that were able to...
Well said.
I mean, sadly, that's what Adolf Hitler was. He was a galvanizing person. He took advantage of a vulnerable country who was essentially blamed 100% for World War I.
Yeah.
And they got supremely penalized for it. And he said... Like,
let's double down.
Basically, let's make Germany great again.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's the Jews' fault, and that is hyperbole. Like he did at some point say that, like,
there's the problem.
The people that fought, like, this group of people, this is kind of like they need to pay like we pay.
Yeah.
And then it went as far as it did. But again,
Yeah, and I also don't think, we got the Gulf War and stuff, but I don't think we've ever felt it as life as tumultuous as it is.
Do you remember how long Operation Desert Storm was?
Yeah, wasn't it like,
It was literally like 100 days.
yeah.
Like as soon as we crossed that border,
Yeah, I was gonna say
fired
4
some
months.
Patriot missiles.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Saddam Hussein was kind of like, okay, you called bluff.
That's it. That one was crazy too, though, because that was the first time I was made aware of, and you have to be careful of the things you say now about everything. But I was made aware that I guess America can do some fucked up shit because Clinton ordered that air raid.
Well, that was '98, and this is wag the dog.
Yeah.
It's a wag the dog moment. Are we surprised that it came in such a short succession after the accusations that he was getting head in the Oval Office came out? I'm not.
No.
No, it's a great, again, weapons of mass distraction.
Distraction, yeah.
Yep. But, I mean, so you're naming stuff like that. I mean, we could go on and on. I mean...
Guys are taking a quick intermission break. Feel free to enjoy some intermission music until they return momentarily. So,
Turn it up.
Let's talk about the can, man.
What's that?
Let's talk about the can.
Oh, okay. So we're going to move on to just, I would say, another example of how social media can be bad, but also of just how we're collectively just a bunch of fucking idiots. That's my
And,
take.
it applies on both sides. But, all right, so right now, if people watching this in the future or whatever, there is a trans activist who's been placed on a Bud Light can for promotion, and she's promoting the can. People are...
Which is, by the way, if you watch how the video goes down, it goes down like every single video that Budweiser does that for somebody that they want to endorse their product.
They sent me a can with me on it, you know?
And I'm going to use my platform and thank them and show it off, and that's it. These aren't mass-produced cans. These are special edition cans for that person. Kind of like really hits home the...
It's a really manipulative and stupid technique, in my opinion. But anyway, so a lot of people who drink Bud Light, perhaps the large demographic, look at this hat I'm wearing and the hat that Bob's wearing. Bud Light drinkers, it's a demographic. Not that we are. I'm not a drinker at all, but,
Well, I drink Bud Light.
Well, we talked about it. Bars
Yeah.
we do. Yeah, not because we think it's great, but the opposite, because it's water. But anyway, but I guess a lot of people have been like, okay, you were aiming this for so long at like college guys and the American man who drives a truck and drinks a beer and has a dog, And so a lot of people are like, what the fuck? But this ended up turning in such a stupid way. Because one side is like, that can is stupid and fuck Budweiser, right? But then these people are then driving, buying a case of it, usually glass, which is more expensive, putting it on a rock, and then filming themselves shooting the beer.
Oh, you're talking about Kid Rock.
Well, yeah, Kid Rock gestated that. There's tons of other people doing it now. Yeah, because Kid Rock, I guess, got sent the cans as well, and he was like, yeah,
He got sent the cans?
That's what I thought. Or they offered him, and he was like, you know what? People
I think what happens is he saw that video. He saw
an opportunity.
He saw Anheuser-Busch, the parent company of Bud Light, as they're broadening the people they want to sell products to.
Yeah.
And he decided, oh, well, fuck this. I'm protesting this.
So he started the shooting them with guns.
And I'm going to protest my favorite beer by going and buying 30 racks of said beer. And then I'm going to film myself shooting said beer.
Crazy, dude. It's basically the adult version of crying and throwing a tantrum. Do you have to agree with what they did? No. What's interesting, the lady who does marketing now, I don't remember her name, Horseface McGee, she fucking talked about, she came out and was like, and I think this was a coward move too. I think she fucking could have been like, hey, we did it. Like, shut the fuck up. We want a wider audience now. She didn't do that. She was like, listen, kind of had to do it because, like, no one likes us anymore. And we're going to be, and she's basically saying we're going to be fully obsolete in like 4 years.
But this is the thing. They're the number one selling beer in the country. And and I'm talking market shares.
But this brings it back to my theory here. Because I have a theory about this. It was a smart move on Bud Light's part because I believe all this was done just to get people mad and to get people talking.
Oh, you mean like we were talking about, like, no publicity is bad publicity?
Yeah, this is media manipulation.
Yeah.
It is. They knew. There's no way that a couple guys on the board or even women weren't like really, like nothing against the movement but us. And so
the suits saw Kid Rock's reaction, and do you know what one of them did? And I wish I had the button for it. The cha-ching.
Yeah. No, 100%.
Yep.
So they doubled down, and
it's like, thanks, Kid Rock, for being a fucking idiot.
And every other redneck guy now who's like driving over beer in his F-150 and filming it, it's fucking insane. There's just better ways to handle things. But I think, so my theory 100% is this was a PSYOP campaign. It wasn't about the beer. It wasn't about the transvestite.
When did you become aware of this backlash?
That's a fair question. Probably in the last week and a half. I'd say 2 weeks maybe.
How did you become aware?
I was on a website where someone brought up or shared a picture of the woman and the can and was like all mad about it. And then I saw other people's responses and I was like, oh, this is a thing.
I became aware of it because people were referencing Kid Rock. And my first thought is, well, who the fuck's referencing Kid Rock?
Yeah, fair.
Like, what has he done recently? And then somebody shared the video, so I watched the video, and then I'm like, okay, and he's shooting 30 racks of beer, and he's saying, like, fuck Bud Light, fucking hasn't put all this stuff. And I'm still kind of like, why? And then it's like, oh, because they got a transgender person as an endorsement. So my point is, I didn't even know that they reached out to a transgendered person until
you saw the
until the backlash went viral.
Okay.
So if that really didn't happen, I wouldn't have had any knowledge.
And that there is why it's my theory is if you're talking about Bud Light on Twitter for the first time in 10 fucking years, and there are millions of tweets, even if, listen, I work behind the scenes with computer shit, even if all those comments are bad, they're called engagements, and that's exactly what every business wants. They would do anything for it. Budweiser figured out how to get it, and they're using the negative fucking press. 100%.
And I know I jokingly kind of said it before, but yeah, if I'm going out to a bar, because I'm at that point in my life where I'm not just like, woo, let's get fucked up. Like, I'm drinking a Bud Light. Why? Because it's going to take me longer to get drunk, and I'm a social drinker, so I just like to socially drink with something. And
so you're going to piss it out.
And it's like, it's like a water that gets you drunk.
Yeah.
Eventually, but not very quickly. And it's on the cheaper end of stuff.
Yeah,
and it's
I don't think the market's going to change that much. I don't think all these angry dads.
I'm going to look at the camera right now for this next thing I'm going to say, because what I see is a lot of people saying, "Oh, Anheuser-Busch has lost billions and billions of dollars," and then they post, but then they post links to the article that they read. So then I read the article because that's kind of my thing. I'm like a scientist. I'm like a researcher.
Yeah.
Like I like to see your sources, and then I like to see your sources, and I like to go down that rabbit hole.
Bob will see your herpes. He wants to know where you got them.
Exactly. I want to know patient zero of your herpes. That's what I want. But anyway, so this person posted this thing. Oh, Budweiser is down they've lost $6 billion, all that. I click on the article that they did, and the article broke it down by what are conservatives saying, what are liberals saying, and then what are people in the middle saying. Okay. And in between all they're referencing, giving you some backstory, but then they're giving you. That's where I found out that they're the not necessarily Bud Light, but Anheuser-Busch is the best number one selling beer in the country.
Like
so they were already number one. They dipped 3%, and they're still number one. Mm-hmm. And it's like, okay. And if that 3% represents $6 billion, then I'm pretty sure they're like, that's a drop in the hat.
And don't forget the 3% drop.
And it's market. We're talking markets. We're not. Markets are volatile.
And don't forget...
Okay, a 3% dip and it's going to be 10% increase.
Think about all their platforms, okay? Now think about the millions of hits on each platform. You guys understand that whatever money they've made, the revenue just from the internet has counterbalanced that 3% loss? Mm-hmm. I guarantee it has. They're rolling in it now. They're excited. And now they know that it works. What are they going to do? A Jeffrey Dahmer can next month? I think what you got to take away from me and Bob here is we're not taking a side on it. It exists. It's fine that it exists. It's fine that people are mad. All of it just feels dumb and forced. But, again, drives home the theme of the episode that everything's fucking nuts.
And to me, it is yet another example of people on social media just looking for a reason to get upset about something. It's another reason. It's another situation where we become divided.
Mm-hmm.
And the people, be it Anheuser-Busch, or be it our government, or be it whoever it may be, just sitting back and be like, they just do it to themselves.
So easy.
They make it so easy for us.
Yeah.
Because this is what they want, in case anyone doesn't realize.
Yeah, and they've already, I mean, you know, gender battles. We got ethnic battles. We've got cultural battles. We have financial battles. Like, when we were younger, it was like, oh, your family's Republican, mine's Democrat. Cool. Like, maybe our parents wouldn't get along, but cool, it didn't matter. Now it's like, who are you? You can't go over their house. They're a Republican. Like, it's become so viciously polarized that I feel like for a lot of people, the smartest thing to do, because I'm doing this because I have no choice, is to step away from it all. It's to step away from it all. It's a fucking circus, man.
I know. I'm still in that phase where I just love to troll people.
Yeah.
But then to my credit, I do let them know at some point I'm trolling you.
I had a good
And I'm
troll
doing
this
it
week.
because it's a social experiment just to show you how dumb this is.
Can I tell you about a troll I had? 'Cause
Go.
you love these things.
Yes, I do.
So, listen, if you do something like put a message in all caps or fucking,
Stop yelling.
like, that's what it is essentially.
Yeah.
Or use a capital at the front
Clap emojis.
Yeah. Or like fucking just, I keep losing my thought, Bob.
You were going to tell me a trolling
thank you.
story.
So, you know, someone's on a site and it's for music or something, someone leaves a comment where all capitals at the front of each word and they signed it. Bro, if you sign a comment, I'm coming for you. I can't help it.
Sincerely.
Sincerely.
Or sincerely yours, best regards.
And then, like, they're screaming, like, sincerely,
Cheers.
Big Dick Ed. And this motherfucker left a comment, and I'm like, yo. And this is going to seem so cocky to me, but I don't care, all right? Me and Bob, we do fuck around sometimes. We do find out. But I just was like, yo, dude, did you just fucking sign your comment? I'm like, I feel like real sadness radiating from your post. And just whatever, and that was it. And then he comes back, he's like, you know, I write with all capitals at the front because that's how I write. This is real what I'm about to tell you. He's like, I don't think you understand who you're playing with, little boy. First of all, I'm old as fuck, right? And you can see it in the photo. He's like, I'm super accomplished. I just shot a music video for an indie band in Arizona, and I have 10 different articles I've written on the web. Really, bro? And so he was excited, and then he did some check my LinkedIn.
That's not chuckling. That's me just going,
Oh yeah, he fucking sealed it. I was like, oh, this is what we're doing, okay? And so, of course, he's like, check my LinkedIn. It was piss in a puddle compared to mine. I'm not trying to do that, but this motherfucker went there. So I was like, hey, bud, listen. I just Googled me and you, and I think you should do the exact same thing. I'm like, if you have 10 articles, I have 10,000. If you've been in indie music videos, I've directed music videos. And yeah, it was total cockery, but it was like, listen, man, last thing you do if you make a dumb comment is double down. Best thing you can do is ignore a motherfucker.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Best thing you can do is look
Keep
at
it
it,
going.
give me a thumbs down under my comment, and we all move on. But you engage. And I'm like, so if you want to keep listing achievements, I'm like, we can do that. But all that does is scream that you're an incredibly insecure person.
Yes.
And I'm like, and I just listed 5 of mine and feel like an idiot. But I'm just letting you know. And I was like, best thing you can do now is get rid of this comment you wrote so that I just look like an idiot yelling at no one. That's what I told him. He did it. But me and Bob, we can be antagonistic sometimes. We know that. Bob loves
I'm an
that
asshole.
shit. Bob loves that
listen,
shit.
Nothing. I find nothing more enjoying than going into. And for me, it's Bleacher Report. So I go into the sporting communities
Like they're kittens
for local stuff because that is the most entertaining cesspool. Just for how people
somewhat like-minded
because of people just going at each other like great. So I just keep it going for 45 minutes with somebody, and then when I drop it on them, I've gotten all kinds of reactions. I think the reactions when someone's like, "Oh, I thought I was doing the same thing to you," and it's like, "Oh, touche, salesman. Good job." We're a similar cause. Mm-hmm. We're doing a similar cause. But I've had people who try to deconstruct me as a person, and I just literally am like, So you're upset because you realize that you put all your eggs in one basket to really hammer home this thing about sports. And what the fuck is sports? It's a distraction from real life.
Yeah, it's video games. It's all that.
And just to find out that someone was just fucking with you for 45 minutes and made you look like an idiot. Because their point is, this is way too serious for what the fuck this really is.
But anyway, sidetrack. These are things you have to do to entertain yourself when the world's going to shit.
Yeah.
And what we had mentioned before, we mentioned it in passing. 10, 15 years ago, as a young person, you wanted to get out to Portland, Oregon. You wanted to. Because it was a real interesting boom of youth, interesting places to live, very arty downtowns and shit. Dude, everyone's passing out there now. It's a fucking dope. It's a dope town.
Homeless people have way too much rights. Like, they could just squat on your front lawn.
And we're not trying to undermine them, but in certain cities, they run the shit, man.
Yep.
There are fucking needles on the ground. You have to wear boots and shit, because if one goes through your soul, you're getting fucking AIDS.
I have a friend of mine. Him and his wife lived out there, and then they moved to just over the line into Washington.
Yeah.
Because they just couldn't stand living in Portland anymore.
No, it's gotten bad. San Fran is another example. It's taken over. There's shit in the streets. I mean, in worldwide, we can talk about, they started sharing videos of, this started a few weeks ago, the Paris you dreamed of, and there's, a photo of Paris at night, Paris now. All the streets are filled with trash and shit.
Well, that's the strike. I think that's related to the strike.
But it's like when you look at the big picture, if you pull back and look at everything that's going on at the same time, it's like, how do we curb this? Because we're fucked. And then I forgot, because I don't want to forget to mention this. It's even down to relationship. I was telling Bob, I read something yesterday about how younger men and men in their 20s and shit aren't asking women out anymore. And the reason was, it said, young men feel like first dates are job interviews. And I can understand that. I mean, even being on Tinder, you'll get hit up with, what's your height? You get that a lot right off the bat. And it's like, whatever, it is what it is. But there seems to be kind of an imbalance. And so relationships are changing. There aren't a ton of people pairing off, which means there's not going to be a ton of children being had, which is awesome. It's a smart fucking generation, if you ask me. But just that, the death of giving birth, the death of conventional relationships, perhaps, a growth of polyamory, which is fine if people want that. But I think, there are people now.
Well, you know what the fear, again, with the government, because they released it about a month ago.
Yeah.
They said that Social Security's benefits are going to be cut in 2035. Why? Because for anyone who doesn't know how Social Security works, basically it's the model. I'm not going to go into all of it, but basically the model is for a long time was the sweet spot is for every one person who's retired, there's 3 people working.
And that can't maintain it.
And now it's like 2.5.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that's what is going to face us. And it's not just the United States. Again, that's why there's bedlam in France, because to counteract it, they want to raise the retirement age to 64, I think, from 62. By the way, in our country, you can retire at 62 and get your benefits. It's just you get the full benefits at for us, it's like 67.
Yeah, they encourage you to wait that much closer till you die, though.
Well, of course, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's less. You're still paying for that one person who's retired, and you're gonna collect benefits a less amount of time.
And we knew, we talked about this, not you and I, we didn't know each other at that point, but everyone knew that our parents were going to be the last generation that could retire properly.
Like fully retired.
Fully
with
retired.
The way it was.
Grab a boat, get a cabin, yeah, nah.
Yeah. But again, I mean, you know that every now and then, like, the government audits itself to see how it's doing. And I love it, because you know what the audit results say?
You guys are doing great. All right?
And then they say, just kidding, you're doing fucking terrible.
It's like when your friend would grade your test in class.
And it probably still happens, but I think around the turn of the century, when they did an audit like this, they found out that the amount of money that our country was borrowing from the Social Security Fund to pay for everything was in the trillions.
Wow.
So it's like, oh, you're saying it's going to run out, so we have to pay more. Well, why don't you stop fucking borrowing from it, assholes?
Yeah.
And I think there are checks and balances, and it probably happens less, but I wouldn't be surprised if that stuff happens too.
We would have no way of knowing ultimately.
No, well, until they do an audit just to see how terrible.
But even then, what makes you, it would surprise me that they would think that audit would be honest.
Yes and no. The last audit was pretty scathing.
Yeah.
So it made me go, wow, that's transparent. I'm surprised. I'm surprised the government allowed that much information to get released, that you guys suck that much.
But doesn't that make you think there's a ton we doubt now?
Well, yeah, there's always more that we don't know, and then it's like, well, that's sad. And that's just the cynic. I'm sorry, I'm cynical. Like, I'm just, that's where I go, like, yeah, this is all just a fucking shit show. And then we entertain ourselves by lobbing verbal Molotov cocktails at each other via social media, and then it spills out into the streets where you don't give a fuck about, literally don't give a fuck about your neighbor. I remember being a child, and I remember going over to my neighbor's house, adults with like their grandkids, like watching Star Trek, and it was like, no big deal. I could just show up.
Yeah, me too.
It's like, oh, Friday at 7, Star Trek time. Hey, wow, welcome over. It's fine. Mom and Dad know. It's fine. They're gonna call anyway once they,
figure out.
Once they stop watching the news and they're like, where's our third child?
10 o'clock, where are your kids?
But, I mean, yeah, nowadays, like, do people even want to talk to their neighbors? Are we that isolated? And that's what I mean. Are we that isolated that we...
It's changed.
Yeah.
Post the 90s, it definitely died. And it's a shame. Because like, right now where I live, well, I just moved, actually, so this completely nullifies itself. But I knew all the people around, and we were all friendly to each other. But, like, yeah, when I lived in Weymouth as a child, you could walk into your neighbors. And I remember I used to randomly trick-or-treat in my neighborhood, on my street. Because everyone knew that I would do it. And they'd give me, like, Cheerios and a fucking cherry tomatoes and shit. But, like... But that was different. You could do that. You could go door to door and, but then again, we sound so bitter. It's like, we should be able to go to a stranger's house and not get molested. We also got molested.
But this is also bringing it full circle to kind of the point of the podcast is that that's where in my opinion, we get the best of both worlds. There is a part of us that is optimistic, like the younger part of millennials.
Yeah.
But there's that part of us that's that bitter, cynical, like Gen X.
Yeah.
Where we're real, and I call it being realistic. I love saying that to people. Oh, I'm sorry, I live in this place called the real world. Like, so it's having both. And yes, when you're navigating that, when in your formative years, it's a very confusing time. It's a very sad and lonely time, and can be a very depressing time. But if you get beyond that, it actually helps you get through like a lot of other stuff in life.
Yeah, you remember. Sunday, I believe, we saw a couple, like, young kids downtown, and a couple of the girls were wearing pajamas. And I said to you, that's the clothes of defeated people in their 40s. And that's just, like, for no other reason than you don't give a fuck and want to be comfortable. So to see, like, 17-year-olds...
As I'm literally wearing, like, sweatpants and...
Dude.
But at least those have, like, MC Hammer style, like, energy.
But that's the point I'm making. You get tighter and whatever. And I said to Bob, I'm like... this new generation is pre-defeated. Like, they're pre-defeated, because it's just kind of like, and I remember reading about it, oh yeah, more and more young people go to school in their pajamas because who gives
Ignorance
a fuck?
is bliss.
Who gives a fuck,
Yeah. I think we should, not that we have to, like, talk about it in depth, we should just mention, and things like cancel culture are a part of the problem too.
Being outraged before you know why.
And I'm not saying that, like, that mindset, when it started, came from a bad place. It didn't, but then it deforms into a monster.
It got too loud.
Yeah.
It was given a megahorn and never told when to hold it back.
And some of my favorite stuff on social media is when cancel culture devours itself.
Dude. I know for a fact, for people who don't know, there's this movie Project Thunder. Is that the name of it?
Yes.
That is?
I'm pretty sure.
The one with Ben Stiller?
Tropic Thunder.
There it is. See, I know I was wrong. Thank you. Tropic Thunder is a movie...
I knew what you were talking about.
Yeah, fair enough. And I figured you'd get it because you're great with that stuff, memory-wise. But it's a movie where Robert Downey Jr., one of the characters, plays an Australian guy playing a black guy. He's a guy playing another guy. But people have retroactively, in the last, 6 months, tried to bring it up on Twitter and being like, why was this ever okay? Because we weren't really pussies and we knew it was mocking the idea of blackface.
How dare someone in a movie 15 years ago do blackface?
Yeah, and the whole thing was like, even when it came out, immediately people were like looking around, like, is this okay? And black people that I knew were like, that is fucking hilarious.
Mm-hmm. And do you know who doesn't? You know who doesn't make a big deal about whiteface?
Oh,
The cancel culture.
Yeah, I was gonna
Why
say.
don't you be consistent then?
White chicks. How come white chicks is okay?
Mm-hmm. How come Dave Chappelle? By the way, Dave Chappelle is the news guy.
He's sick.
On Chappelle. I know, but on Chappelle's show was one of the greatest things. When you, because like, especially like whiteface, because it's so easy to make fun of white people.
No,
we make it so easy,
and we deserve it to an extent,
and we do. And I think, and the best part is everyone. It's okay to laugh.
But we got to remember that outrage culture's canceled that, and it's like, man, I laugh at shit I shouldn't. Always have had a dark sense of humor, but I think the world. You just summed it up, actually, and fuck this thing. You just summed it up and got me thinking, like, how much has shifted, and why? What do you think's at the core of it? Why is there so much disquiet right now?
Because we have, and this isn't the be all end all. It's just
social media.
But it's about Gen Z, and this is where I'm gonna be critical of them, but I'm also gonna be empathetic towards them, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Gen Z has like Gen X as parents, even early millennials.
Yeah.
And very rarely do they have boomers as parents. Very rare, but it can happen.
They're aging out.
But they were raised in a nurturing environment, and they were raised to be vocal, and they were to be like advocate for what's right and all that. But the problem was they were given all the tools, but they weren't given the practical ways to do it. So they had to figure it out on their own.
Execution.
And then it also coincides with just the explosion of social media, which does give you this sense of protection.
Everyone's got a megaphone.
And when you tie it all in together, because the other problem is that we're at a point where what goes on social media is a perception of reality, and that's not reality. I've gone to when George Floyd was killed by that officer.
Yeah.
And I remember in the city we lived in, I went to the protest.
Yeah.
And you know what I enjoyed about that protest is the police did their details to block off the parade route to City Hall. And they did it knowing that people were like shouting things like no justice, no peace, no racist police.
Like it could have gotten uglier.
Yeah, and it kind of did at the City Hall, but it was for like a weird reason. Like someone came there to complain about the mayor and was not aware that there was like a thing going on, and it turned out okay, but it was really just like hearing like police officers and everyone being like, yeah, this isn't really, I hear you and I think your voice should be heard, but this isn't the...
Yeah, this isn't where we're doing that. Let us have it for a day.
While people were upset, nobody got hurt. The person who did whatever they did, they didn't get hurt.
Yeah.
The thing that got hurt was like feelings.
Yeah, well, and that's the thing. We've become too fucking sensitive to that exact thing.
Yes.
You know? And one thing I like about our generation is we'll hurt each other's feelings unintentionally by being honest.
Unintentionally. Intentionally. It's a
intentionally
term of endearment.
But, like, that's real shit, man. And that's the realest shit is being genuine with other people. And it does seem like, with everything going on, it's less and less safe to potentially be genuine.
Like, you take my 10 closest friends when I was in just growing up. And you had kids from broken homes. You had kids who grew up in conservative homes. You had kids who grew up in religious homes. You had kids who grew up, they were adopted. You had kids from all these, it was such a diverse background of people. And on the outside, if you saw, we'd go to like fucking Bickford's. I don't even think Bickford's exists, like IHOP. You go to there on like a Saturday night and we're all just hanging out. And you got like goth kids and jocks and you got every stereotype of people just hanging out. And you'd be like, it wouldn't happen today.
Yeah, it's too divisive. Yeah. It is too divisive. And I think the world thrives on that. Like you said, I think the first thing people go to now is outrage. I think too many people have a megaphone to air that. I don't think enough of these people think about what they're even saying. I think their go-to reaction is flipping the fuck out and flailing their hands and running around like a muppet. And a good example is when I'm gonna release this episode sooner. I'm gonna treat it like because
we treated the Kanye one.
Yeah.
But one thing I would do if anybody comments on it and they have criticism of what we've talked about, I will thank you. And I'd say, please give me more feedback. Let's have a dialogue.
Yeah, I'd love to discuss it. I mean,
Yeah.
it's very interesting, but all the people I know do agree on one thing, despite of differences. Is
We all fucking hate Caillou.
well, we all are pretty much convinced in one way or another
That Caillou sucks.
things are only going to get worse.
Sorry.
It's okay. You're allowed.
It's a great meme. It's a great
It is, and you're allowed those. I'm
people
not,
on the left say this, or people on the right feel that, but both can agree that Caillou
this
sucks.
sucks. Yeah.
No, that Caillou sucks. You know what I'm talking about, Caillou, right?
No, I just went with the meme.
It's a Canadian. It's like a Canadian cartoon show of like a bald kid.
Oh, Caillou, the French. Yes, okay, I do.
Yes, that.
There's weird theories about
Yeah.
that show, Anyway,
I hope if none of you have kids, never torture your children and make them watch that.
yeah, that's the way it works.
I will call Child Protective Services on you.
Right. But I think the other thing that's important right now, and I think that as much as we've talked about, oh no, is listen, your circle's shrinking. It is. The circle of people you love and trust is shrinking. But,
And for me, I feel it.
but it's very, very important that you don't let it disappear, because it's a weird, divisive time, and it can be very lonely.
We always come back to Pat at some point, or there's things we always come back to. I always want to come back to one of our favorite comedians, Bill Hicks.
Yeah.
And he said, when he talked about how it's fear and love. Fear will make you all do this stuff, but you know what? Love can make you do things too. And that's what we need, and that's what we need more of. We need more dialogues with in the back of your head, there's compassion and love coming from it. And I mean like love for humanity and love for people and empathy for people. Because that's one problem we have right now is we don't have empathy. We have apathy.
No, it's true.
We have a complete lack of consideration for other people.
Yeah, and I think that too. It's a good time to figure out who your people are, and just keep that bubble small, keep it safe, and don't do dickhead shit. Life's fucked and everything's going down the drain. So don't fuck your relationships up with arguments, and don't we need to realize that shit's only gonna get worse. So we have to know we can talk to each other. We have to know that it's a safe space still, as in all of life, for us to be able to say, I don't agree with this and don't agree with this, but I think that throwing your hands up and I think all the outrage and all the anger is really, really misplaced.
Mm-hmm.
I think they made it so that we attack each other instead of attack the infrastructure and the system that's put us here. And like you said, they're sitting back and I understand.
It's all going according to plan.
Yeah, super easy. Misinformation in the media. But, our point of this is, again, and this, I can talk about the world ending here, because this is my safe space here specifically. Mm-hmm. Do we think it's going to happen?
You mean you could talk about your concerns that the world is coming to an end, and you don't want it to? But
also almost like a, if it happens, it happens. Shit's okay right now. And this forum makes it easier. It's one of those things where if you think about it alone and you get scared, it's oh, that's a lot. But to talk about it and have it as a discourse can almost take away some of the taboo and some of the freakishness of the thought, I guess.
Yeah. And I guess we'll leave you with that food for thought.